All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee. Today is Thursday, November the 14th, 2024. We're getting started a little late, 5:34 p.m. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel. The recording of this meeting will be available on the Lunenburg Public Access YouTube channel within 24 hours. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Public participation is encouraged, and public comments may be welcome during committee member discussions at the discretion of the chair. So just acknowledging that tonight we have Tom Gray, myself, Michael Ray Jeffries, Brian Leighton, David Blatt as members. We have Tony Scollambrini, APDC representative, and so we do have our quorum. So as we get going tonight, I just have a couple things to say. Maybe I'll call this a board comment, but I have a hard stop tonight at 6:15. And so if we need to continue to meet after that, hopefully we'll have another member to maintain quorum. And if so, Dave, you can pick it up, or Brian can pick it up as the vice chair or as the clerk. So do we have any public comments this evening from the board? Seeing none, do we have any public comments from our APDC rep?
None.
And do we have any public comments from the public? All right. So I'm gonna skip over the review and revise. Oh, we do. All right. Public comment. I think I just clicked to ask you to unmute, and I need. Yep, there we go. Rhonda?
Yeah. Hi, this is Rhonda Licio, 181 Reservoir Road. I have a few questions, but I'll just ask one for tonight since you're pressed for time. I'll save the others for a future date. I listened to the recent presentations at both the Finance Committee meeting and special town meeting, and I have a question. There was a statement made that there's a significant cost to relocate the PAC broadcast feed at Town Hall when you looked into it, moving it to TCP. So I was wondering if you could provide what was the amount quoted by Comcast when you were looking to relocate the broadcast feed to TCP? That's my only question for now. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Rhonda,
if you don't have it available, I'll wait until the next meeting or whenever.
and if you want to ask your other questions, feel free.
My other one's a lot more to it. It was more, one of the things at the special town meeting included the statement that you've come up with, the committee has come up with the most cost-effective solution for the buildings. And I just look at it from the standpoint that I think the way to maximize tax dollars is to actually maximize space. And to me, renovating 6,500 square feet of town hall to be used as meeting rooms is like duplicating space. We have large rooms in other buildings that we could use for meetings. And I was thinking office space is a higher priority. So why wouldn't you look into using the town hall as office space for either the school or the town offices? It just seems like there's some waste that we could get rid of and fully utilize the current footprint without adding the other annex to the Ritter, the 4,000 square feet. So that's just my comment in question.
All right. Well, I think we try to be engaging during these. So, the first one that you asked about the significant cost for PAC, I will need to get back to you on that one. That was a bit ago. You may recall that PAC does have funds that would cover a lot of their own costs in terms of like outfitting out their space. And when we were discussing the PAC space, I think that the expectation at that time was that they were going to kind of get what we call a white box, where they, basically get walls. And then my understanding at least was that they were going to, fill that in with their equipment and stuff, and that they had their funding for that, that the cost that the town was bearing was providing that room to them. And then the other,
Okay, so
yep,
so there is no cost to actually relocating the broadcast feed,
I don't think it's
or there
about.
is.
Yeah, I don't think it was about the broadcast fees. I think what I want to clarify is when we were discussing the TCP building design, and we were positioning that building to have multiple meeting rooms and conference rooms, that the cost I may have been referring to, that I believe I was referring to, was the cost of carrying all their cabling from all of those meeting rooms back into their studio, and that contributed to a higher cost compared to looking at town hall as a meeting house. That cost is lower, because the cords aren't going as far, and there's, you don't have as many as much length of cabling. That was one of the costs that I was making reference to. It was also that, in our programming thus far, which we're going to kind of have to discuss some more, of where PAC's going to live at. Let me just admit Dave into the room. So it was a cabling cost, and the cost of, again, that was one of the drivers that was bringing cost up. So when we compare the TCP plan to a town hall plan, it's less money to get meeting rooms in town hall up on, all the internet and all the controls to be able to be controlled from the control room. Separately, PAC does come with some money. They come with some money to outfit their space, but they don't have enough money to build their own building or build their own space. And so I think that, we were at the very beginnings of the conversation of what they could afford in terms of construction. And it seemed pretty limited that they would need to pay to outfit their space. And that our obligation would be to provide it. But that, unlike other rooms where, we're outfitting the town would be outfitting the whole thing. That answer
But
your
it
question,
also
Ron?
it seems a little crazy to me, though, that we would keep a meeting house and then PAC would still need a studio. So it just seems like we're maintaining too much space, is my thought.
Yeah. Well,
For
I can,
for a space that's underutilized. You know, one of the things you said the other night was the cost to maintain buildings. Even our new buildings are coming with some pretty high priced items. So why would we add space when we don't have to add space? Like the 4,000 square foot annex. I just don't understand.
yeah, I think the easiest way to kind of explain that is that currently we maximize the footprint at Town Hall. We currently maximize the footprint at the Ritter Building, and it's not enough space for the school department to be in. And so I think that, when you think about how much space the school department is currently occupying and how much space they're going to need, it's several thousands of square feet. And
But
so
what I'm saying is remove the meeting room from the town hall and turn that into office space.
I see what you're saying. You're saying don't have meeting rooms at town hall,
Yes, yes.
maximize the
Build out the
library,
entire building. Exactly.
maximize the library,
Exactly.
maximize the, collaborative rooms in the high school. I hear you.
Yes.
Yep, Okay, I think the committee did initially consider that. I think we had determined previously that it wasn't enough space. But you know, I think as we go through this process, I think, you know, we're certainly going to talk about that. Anyone else want to comment on that question? I see Tony's hand up.
I do. The agreement between the town and Comcast, or Xfinity as they're now called, was recently renewed, and it'll go through, I think, 2028. And in that agreement, there's a couple of specific technical things that have an impact on the conversation. One is the town is earning money from the Comcast or the Xfinity broadcast fees, not a lot, but the pot of money that creates the ability to do capital improvements and buy equipment continues to grow. So there is, you know, and not by a large amount. There was, as a result of the agreement, a chunk of cash provided by Xfinity, and then the per subscriber licensing fee generates smaller chunks of cash. In fact, I wouldn't even call them a chunk, but I believe PAC is sitting on over $500,000, but less than $1 million. And
Yeah.
you know, so
Mhm.
that's the one issue. The
I
technical
actually used to be I actually used to chair PAC. I was on the committee for like 5 years.
yeah,
So I know, I'm pretty well
you know how
informed
that's.
about,
Yeah, but the other technical
yeah.
piece associated with the agreement is there's only a finite number of places that Comcast or Xfinity allows the feed to go into the larger system. Town Hall is one, the high school is another. I'm not sure TC Passios was part of the original agreement. I think that it is included as a feed point. And if you move functions around, you'll have to pay for adding a new location under that contract, under the contract agreement. I think that, you know, I've said this a couple of times. I think a perfect place to put PACs is in town hall, because then you could actually use that money to support sustaining square footage of a building that's owned by the town of Lunenburg. You know, right now, those dollars are not being spent to make any improvements. Whereas if we took and put PACs in town hall, that might actually be a great way to spend some of that money and spend it in a way that, you know, has an impact on town hall, which I think we have heard from voters, we've heard from citizens that say, oh, you know, we want to keep that building. And I think it would make a substantial reason to use town hall if you did put the PACs folks into that building. And then you don't have to pay for, I don't know how much it would cost to, you know, to say, bring the town feed over to a Ritter Edition. But if you had PACs at that location, you wouldn't have to pay for relocating the feed. So I think those are good suggestions, and I think those are things that we'll continue to talk about with the designer that which is the focal point for our meeting this evening.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think one of the limitations.
I had actually made,
I was going to comment,
I had
Rhonda,
made,
but
ooh,
one of
sorry.
the
I
limitations
was
with
just,
PAC is the weight of their equipment. That was something that they have expressed concern about, is the weight of their equipment. And then the other concern that they had was that they need that what works well for them in their current location is the ability to kind of bring, you know, their equipment's heavy. They do have mobile things that they do, and the ability to be able to kind of bring a vehicle close to the building and unload and get it into the building. But I think that as we go forward, you know, we're going to go through a space needs of what we've identified, and I think, you know, the current vision is that we're going to find a home for them, and so I think this is you know, important part of the conversation.
as far as PAC goes, if we're going to keep the gym and the cafeteria at TCP, and it seems like they were resistant to wanting to move the studio into town hall when I suggested it years ago.
They were.
And what I was thinking, if the Boys and Girls Club use the gym, if the food bank is using the cafeteria, and if PAC was also given, leave a portion of that building for PAC, if we changed PAC to a 501(c), that you would have 3 nonprofits in the same building. Couldn't they get funding to help them out? Grants?
So by the way, the Boys and Girls Club only use the gym when it's available. So they're lucky if they get a couple of days a week for a couple of hours in those days. Because it's the Parks and Recreation that still run the, you have to reserve the gym. So they couldn't use it because of pickleball or this or that. So it's very limited that the Boys and Girls Club get to use TC Passios.
Yeah, it's mostly the adult activity center, as you said, parks and recreation. But Rhonda, I think that you're bringing up some good points. I think, given we're a little short on time tonight, but I think that
I know, I'm sorry. That's why I didn't want to get into it, but
I asked, and I think that it's important to hear the questions so that way as we go forward, we can make sure we give you some answers and incorporate your feedback,
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I will listen.
And, I do appreciate that. And I think this kind of triggers some really good questions. Will we work with the designer for where this, how to account for PAC and better, and do we need to modify the current plan as we envision it for town hall to maybe have a PAC studio in there? I do recall that one of their limitations was sound, that they needed to be kind of quiet wherever they are. For some of their activities, but we can engage this over the coming months and get an answer for you. And I will get back to you on the first question about how much was quoted.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So what I want to make sure we can do tonight is go through go through the questions. So I did reach out. Well, before we even get to that point, let me first find where I just put the Zoom meeting. All right, hold on. I just lost it on my screen, so let me just get to that. All right, there we go. I got a couple things open here. You guys can probably see the lights flickering on my face. So I reached out to Taylor and Burns about an interview, and what they I think I may have muddled the water here a little bit, because I initially was looking for their availability this week, and I had reached out to them. And again, I think I just fumbled this a little bit, but they're not available on the 18th, next Monday. And I did go over with them all the upcoming meetings that was in the RFP. They are available for everything that we've planned going forward, but they have asked for us to reschedule, or not reschedule, but to schedule a meeting with them next week on either Wednesday or Thursday. So that's the first thing I just wanted to check in with everyone on, to see if we have availability to meet with them at 5:30 next Wednesday or Thursday. I'm available both days.
I have a school committee meeting at 6:30 on Wednesday.
Yep, and I think I'm going to be at that one. Do you have a conflict with 5:30 to 6:15?
No, that's fine.
All right. Yeah, interview should be about 40-45 minutes. So Tom's good on Wednesday. Are you good, Dave, on Wednesday, next Wednesday?
Sure. At this point, yes.
Okay. And Tony?
I'm good either day.
All right, perfect. So that's the first. All right, so I'll reach out to them in the morning and get that scheduled for next Wednesday at 5:30. All right, I'm going to pull up the questions that I received, and then we can kind of work off of them. I did receive in total 15 questions. We might find some new ones to add. So a couple things to note as we go through these questions. The format that the town usually follows for this is a 40-45 minute interview. So I want us to kind of be as good to that as we can. So let me go ahead and screen share here. and get that up.
Michael Ray, going back to the meeting, do you expect that to be in person or Zoom?
Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so everyone should be able to see these interview questions. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and if I don't know if you guys can see if people come into the meeting room, if you can admit them, that would be helpful. All right, so a couple. Well, let's walk through the questions. First one, is the firm familiar with the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties? I think that's a good question. As we go through this, if anyone wants to flag a question, just speak out and say, I don't know, or flag, and then let's pause. If not, then I'm going to assume that we're in agreement. Can you provide any examples of projects where those standards were applied in the last 10 years?
Okay.
I'll worry about the numbering later. Let me actually undo that. Whatever. Is any member of the design team receiving any of the National Park Service's preservation tech emails? Can you, Tony, can you explain this one a little bit? I don't know what this means.
Yeah, the Park Service has done a really good job of reaching out to the design community with emails that provide case studies for applying the Secretary of Interior standards to a variety of projects. They've ramped up the communication process significantly over the last 12 months. I get them. I've shared those email links with town staff, with Brian Gingras and Chris Ruth, and I think that they're focused on the Park Service is focused on communicating with architect engineering firms to make sure that they know the latest and greatest with regards to how to do historic preservation. Now, if they're not getting them, I'm not going to say, oh, that's no good, but I think it would be a good way for them to say, oh, so there's things out there that we should be aware of. I would be surprised if they're not getting them already, but I just wanted to kind of get that confirmed. And then if they aren't, it would be good for them to know what's available in the way of resources for historic preservation that they could use for this project.
Okay. Is the summary for the Trinity Episcopal Church Parish House in the summary? It indicates the firm originally planned to demolish the house, but that approach was reversed. Why did the firm reverse its plans? I want to modify the word firm because I want to change it to team because it may not have been their call. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that. In fact, that's one of the things we talked about at the last meeting, is that maybe that wasn't their call. So we'll find out. Either way, firm, team, we'll figure out whether they were told to do it that way or that was their approach.
Yeah, I
Okay.
almost want to ask, like, reword that. Why was this approach? Why did you guys take the approach to demolish the structure, to remove the structure? Demolish?
Yeah.
Why did you choose to demolish, and then why did you reverse the plans?
By the way, I agree with Brian. If we reword this question to kind of not lead down that path. So basically, if we're saying, could you talk about your the process for the Trinity Episcopal Church,
No.
and how you came up with the original plan, and what made you change course?
Now, I took that phrasing right out of theirs. This was one of the 3 case studies that they had listed in their proposal.
Okay.
And that phrase, the firm originally planned to demolish the house, that came right out of their case study language.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say, I'd rather hear them just talk about it, about what, their thought process on the whole project. Because at first they came up with demolish. What was their thought process to come up with demolish?
Yeah.
And then their thought process changed to renovate. So what was what made them change course?
So how Dave and Brian would you like this question worded?
I like Dave's twist to it. I don't know, Dave, you want to keep talking? Wordsmith this one out here?
Yeah, I mean, you're okay with this. Can you talk about the process for the design of the Trinity Church Parish House, and just leave it at that. And then this way, they're going to talk about why they thought to demolish it first, and what made them change course. I don't want to lead them down. I don't want to, I'm trying not to lead them down. I'd rather hear the thought process, because
Yeah.
we're going to run into this. I think we're running into the same thing, right? Because we're saying these buildings, keep them, but I'm looking to hear their thought process of, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense too.
You're trying to hide our concern about them wanting to demolish it. So don't mention demolish, just allow them to speak. And if they say whatever they say, if you tip them and say, why did you want to demolish it, and then change your mind, that's kind of telling them what we're thinking.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What's wrong with that?
Well, because then they might not be telling us the honest truth. I mean, I guess they can watch this video, because this is going to be public information. They could see. But if we're really concerned that, their first, they have a tendency of wanting to demolish things, then they're not really that involved, not that into the historical preservation, then that's something we like to know. So so just kind of putting it in a way that doesn't really doesn't kind of give them a sense of why we're asking, and let them kind of say what they believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know what we're all getting at here.
Right.
And we answer that we know that in this conversation they have to talk about initial plan to demolish, and that they moved away from it. So I do like the rewording of this. Can you talk about the process for the design of the Trinity Episcopal Church Parish House? And I think as a follow-up to this question, if we don't hear what we're looking for, then we ask a follow-up and say, we understand it was initially to demolish, and you discuss in more detail how that changed.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. Describe the firm's approach to preserving the Cassidy Field House. Did the structure have slate roofing? And if so, why was it removed? I don't know if I like this question. I like the previous one. I think this may be a little too project specific, given that we're trying to keep it to about 45 minutes.
Well, in a way, it's the same type of thing. I mean, whether it's the same question of understanding their thought process. If you're preserving the building and it has a slate roof, I would think you want to preserve the slate roof. What was it? Was it because the town had a certain budget? Did it have, I mean, it's kind of this, you're in the same boat a little bit, I think, with this question.
So follow up, secondary, or remove, and maybe hit it with the first question, number 2.
And if what I would say is, I would almost take, did the structure have slate roofing, and just leave that as the question. Because this way we can ask, why was it removed? It had a slate roof. It was, I don't know. I'm looking at it as the same thing. I'm trying not to lead to I'm trying not to lead the question, have the question lead to the answer.
Well, they gave us examples. I guess, let me back up. Michael, are you going to send these questions to them in advance of the interview?
No. And I've actually asked them to not watch our meeting tonight. I told them the last one did not properly record accidentally, and then I've asked them to not watch tonight's meeting.
Actually, I think that's out of bounds with the open meeting law, Michael. I don't think you can do that. And
I don't think it is. I think
if we were in executive
I can't
session,
prevent
you
them
could do
from
that.
doing it. But
yeah, but we're not in an executive session, and I'm pretty sure if they wanted to watch this meeting, they could.
They could.
I'm pretty sure they
I've
will.
asked them not to, though.
Well, okay, but so like, I'm not trying to lead them either. I mean, they gave us examples, and it's kind of like, hey, that building had a slate roof, and then the finished product didn't. Why did that happen? I mean, and there could be 1,000 good reasons why that didn't happen, and I want to give them the opportunity to tell us 1,000 good reasons.
All right. I'm with you, Tony. It's the same thing. I think we're on the same boat then. I'm just wanting to understand that,
So
right.
can you talk about the process for the design of the roof of the Cassidy Fieldhouse? Very similar to number two. I feel like it's more of a follow-up. Here's another project that we want to know more about.
We're trying to figure out how strong is their commitment to historical preservation. And I think if that first, the second question, I think it is, doesn't really give us the answer. This is a good follow-up question. Here's another example. Why did you remove the slate? Was it, you know, or something like that?
Tom, we're not trying to determine their commitment to historic preservation. We make that determination. We are the customer, and we make that determination. What I'm trying to do is to figure out what level of experience do they have in doing historic preservation work. We're not asking them what their commitment to historic preservation is. They're working for us. And what I want to make sure is that when we hire this firm, that they actually have some experience in doing what we want as an end product in this project.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Yeah. I agree with you, Tony.
Number 4, how do you design the additions to become part of the existing structure, especially on historic buildings like the Ritter? I also don't like this question. And the reason why is I think as we've talked about it, you know, we've called it an annex, but we've also kind of identified it as a distinctively different structure. And I think that, you know, with a site visit and with the plans that we provided, I think we may be asking them to demonstrate a level of familiarity and expertise that they probably don't have. You know, I don't, as I think of what the answer could be, I don't know if they're at a point yet where they could actually answer this question to a point of reasonable satisfaction. So that's my concern with question number 4.
I don't,
But
who generated that? Did I generate
I would
that
agree.
question?
No, I generated that one.
I was gonna say, I
I'm
don't
okay with
remember
that.
that question.
Really, I was worried nobody was going to submit any questions. I was like, all right, I'm going to submit some questions, so at least we get something to start.
all right, so are we comfortable removing 4?
Yeah, I am definitely not a specialist when it comes to historical buildings.
Nope, nope. All right. How do you bring it? Are we talking about how do you bring historic buildings into ADA compliance and modern safety standards without losing the historical feel of the building? I think this is a great question. Anyone else?
That is a great question. And that was actually the focal point of a couple of the tech preservation emails that came up in the Park Service over the last 30 days. Because that is a difficult thing to do sometimes. And that's a great question to ask.
All right. So again, if we have any issues, we're going to hold, so I'm just going to try to crank through. I just looked at the time. What are some ways you work to incorporate energy efficiency and sustainability into historic structures? Another great question. How do you coordinate with local historic preservation agencies, building inspectors, and other regulatory bodies through the design and construction phases? What is your process for dealing with unexpected structural issues in older buildings that may involve updating outdated wiring, foundation issues, or materials requiring special handling?
Michael Ray, just to save you time, can you just scroll down a little bit and let us just, if there's one that we want to talk about, we'll call it out.
All right. Does this display? Part of my thought is also like I know in select board meetings, not everything displays well. Is this displaying well to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we got a couple more questions. Thank you, Dave. Anyone want to pause on any of them?
I wonder if you can combine with 7 and 11. You could even just make it one question, possibly. Kind of goes back to structural reinforcements, old buildings.
Those are good questions, but they'll be easy to satisfy, because in the world of historic preservation, you can do anything to the inside of that building as long as it doesn't affect the outside. And I anticipate that that's exactly what they'll do. I mean, if, you know, for town hall, I mean, I think we're looking at a pretty major gut of the interior portion to make it more usable. Ritter, not so much, but, you know, in the world of historic preservation, it's all about what does the building look like on the outside, and then functionally on the inside, you can do a lot of different things.
Brian, I think 7 and 11 are almost the same question.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So
can get rid of 11, I think.
I think number 8, since they're largely working with us, how do you include involvement from committees and community? I think that's actually a good question separately, never mind.
I mean, I'm okay with the questions and maybe just the order, you know, we can always discuss the ordering of them.
Yeah.
But I do believe the questions will give us a good feeling, a good understanding, I should say. And remember, you're now looking at it as, since you renumbered it, it's actually 13 questions you already have.
So I'm just gonna, I think I'm just moving around things.
That's a lot of questions, you know.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
Tony, I agree with you. It's like, you know, if you looked at it and we say there's 13 questions, 14, 13, even 12, you're basically giving 4 minutes, not even 4 minutes a question.
Right, and it never is 4 minutes.
Right.
It never is.
All right, so what do we want to cut out?
Well, you mentioned the last, you know, you mentioned the one with the, well, you have the committee's diagram. I like the idea of, I want to actually want to hear more about that process for both those two buildings. You know, the Trinity and the Cassidy Fieldhouse. I want to talk because I like to, you know, these are both ones where it doesn't seem right. Why would you say destroy it and then say keep it? And the other one, why would you want to, if you're going to keep the historical character, why'd you remove a slate roof?
All right.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and what's our first question?
I
Our
agree
first
with that,
question-
Dave. In fact, that's the essence of the historic preservation questions. We could take the one out about what's your staff doing with regards to getting emails. You could get rid of that one. I think we ought to leave the question in there about what was the focal point project for them over the last 10 years using historic standards. And I think that's probably going to instantly lead to a discussion about Trinity. The Cassidy Fieldhouse, probably not, because of the nature of the building and where it was. There was probably less concern about historic preservation because you're sitting out in the middle of a park in Boston, whereas the Trinity was all about historic preservation because you're sitting in the middle of Concord, Massachusetts. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, so I think those two questions about Cassidy and about Trinity are going to give us a feel for, you know, what their level of expertise is. So I think we could eliminate some of the other questions related to historic preservation.
All right, so which other questions?
Yeah, I take number 4 out.
We're all in agreement?
Well, you just put it to the end. If it's one of those, it's just put it towards the end. And if we get to it, we get to it.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, if you have time, questions at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And to Tony's last point, maybe the idea of well, no, I guess we're going to start with is the firm familiar with the secretary, okay,
Yeah.
inventory standards for the treatment of historical properties. Okay.
I think 6 is a critical question because that's a tough technical issue. you know, for town hall. It won't be for the Ritter. The Ritter's going to be easy to do because we got other ways of getting people into the addition. Um,
6 is now 7. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
I moved up number 4 because I think after we talk about history, I want to hear, given what they've seen and the information they've received, kind of what their initial vision is.
I agree.
Well, then I would actually look at number 7 being probably right after number 4 then.
I want to Apple, that's why I got to right click here and paste because Control Z
Understand.
doesn't work. Okay. Maybe it doesn't, I just don't know. But, whatever. think
And
this,
I'd probably put number 9 in front of number 7. Well, whatever it is, you know.
or right here.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And I think, like I said, if I feel like if number 9, 10, and 11, if we get to it, would be incredible. Yeah.
Okay.
Even though I do believe number 9 is important.
I agree with you. So we have 2 time permitting questions so far. I'm going to scroll past the first one. I think we all know what it is. So our additional questions, time permitting, we have 2 of them. And Brian, I have to thank you because I mean, when I saw your questions come through over the weekend, I was like, this is great. And then when I saw Tony's questions as well, I thought they were pretty detailed. So, all right. So I think this is the order. Any other thoughts on this? All right. So
Just
I will
hey,
yep.
Michael, just if you want to fix your numbering on 1-1.
Yeah. This is the follow-up, right? Or
A or B.
yeah.
No, I think you did that when you were trying to do get rid of numbers at first. It was
Oh, I think I was
You
trying
could
to do
make
a
it part of the
sub-question.
question, yeah. Just back
Yeah.
it into the question 1. Lead it right up into the second part. All question 1.
Okay. All right. All right, we're good here.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing then. All right, I will send that out to the committee. If you guys identify any typos, let me know. And then I'll also let them know that we're scheduled to meet. And again, at Tony's point, they are free to watch this meeting. What I mentioned to them was that, we're gonna be looking to schedule an interview, that all of our meetings are public, that they can always look, but that I would kindly ask that they don't, so that they come into the meetings and we get real reactions, not kind of prepared statements. Unless the committee thinks that we should send these questions in advance.
It's just like last time that they could watch it if they wanted to, but we wouldn't say.
Okay. I reasonably expect that most people for a job like this, they're probably going to tune into the meeting. All right.
If you were running the firm, Michael, wouldn't you do it?
Of course.
That's exactly right.
I want to know who I'm working with. I want to know who kind of the key questions are going to come from. And of course I would. Of course I would. All right. So I I think the next kind of thing is after the interview, if we can plan for about another 45 minutes after that interview to go over the space needs and just kind of, take another look at that and make some revisions. So that way, when we have our kickoff meeting with them, that way we can, so after our interview, I think if everything goes well, we're going to bring them under contract. And then at that point is when I will reach out and provide a little more information to them, such as, the work they're familiar with the town website. When I did reach out to them, I did let them know that there's a lot of information on the town website, that we're under boards and committees, that they can pull up stuff. But I will specifically refer them to some of that work. I'll also give them that spreadsheet that has the capital projects that have been completed off the TAP A or Vertex reports that were suggested. And, so that way they know what work we've already done, as well as what we have currently in the pipeline. So that way, when we have our kickoff meeting with them at the first meeting in December, they have a little bit more information. And then hopefully, next meeting we can get to these space needs. I can also get that to them. So that way they kind of come into that meeting with questions, specific questions that they have, and get going. All this sound fair?
It does, Michael Ray, but I gotta tell you, that step is the most important step. In a good project, there are three things. You gotta have a good builder, you gotta have a good designer, you gotta have a good owner, or the owner.
Yep.
And we heard some comments tonight from the community about what's going to go into town hall, and we got to know what's going into town hall so that when they start, they know exactly what they have to design to. So I think 45 minutes might not be enough. In fact, I think that might be a good time for us to vet some of the more significant issues with regards to space needs. Like Brian, is the superintendent ready to sit down with the designer and tell them what she wants in the way of office space at the Ritter Memorial Building? Because if she's not, we're going to waste their time, and then we're not going to get what we need. That is going to be the most critical step after we select this firm. And they're going to want to know from us, what do we want? Where do we want it?
Yep.
And Michael Ray, I really think that you're probably going to end up, I don't think 45 minutes will be nearly enough to do that.
All right.
Maybe another meeting, because that's already an hour and a half of commitment time. It'll be actually more than that. So maybe another meeting after that before you actually start the process.
At least a good start.
Yeah. No, Tony, I'm right on board with you on that one. I think that we've done a lot of work to get to this point. We've met with so many people to really finalize what these needs are. And then, as we know from our own spreadsheet, we made some critical changes and said, I don't think you really need all that. And I think you can work with a little less, and maybe you don't need a conference room in your office, and maybe you can share one. And so I think we've done a lot of that stuff, and that's kind of how we landed with this concept of not putting conference rooms, additional conference rooms in the Ritter, and this concept of an annex. Because as Rhonda, as Ms. Lizzo said earlier, we do have spaces in town that we can utilize. I think one of the things that I should have mentioned earlier that I didn't is that, I think a critical portion, and I'm speaking out on Ms. Lizzo, but the group, as we were thinking of this previously, just to remind us, one of the things we were also thinking about was future proofing and putting ourselves in a position where we don't have to revisit this in our foreseeable lifetimes. And I think one of the big advantages of town hall is that it has historically been used for offices, and that in the future, if we need more office space, we can get rid of a meeting room and create it. And putting up a partition or a wall, that's a lot cheaper than putting in a new building. And I do think that, as I recall that conversation, that we did have some flexibility in that design. But I do think, to Ms. Lizio's point, we need to evaluate, are we providing too much meeting room space? And doesn't make all the sense. And then I know, speaking with Chris Ruth, something he mentioned is that we need to maintain at least an office in the building, so that way it's not a change of use. And a change of use could trigger additional code upgrades that maybe we're not currently envisioning. And that may have been with Brian Gingeris, not with Chris, to come to think of it. So I know that that's one of the critical pieces that we need this design firm to do, which is say, hey, you know, how do we do this in the most cost-effective way? Are there any other comments that anyone else wants to make before we go into approving some minutes here and adjourning? All right, so we have two sets of minutes to approve. We have the October, was it 21st, Brian? And then we have the November 4th meeting minutes to approve. And
Right.
let me just confirm those days. Was it the 21st,
Yes.
Brian?
Those
Okay.
are correct.
So we have two sets of minutes. I reviewed them. I thought they were great. And thank you, Brian, for getting out the minutes after last meeting since we didn't have a recording. And I know we wanted to get those published. When you send them to the town clerk, assuming we're going to approve them, can you include that the rating sheet that we came up with?
I put it in the minutes. You want the separate file in there too? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
yeah, you kind of identified in the minutes,
Yeah,
but I don't.
you want that
Do you
file.
think it would be helpful to include the file?
We can, yeah, that's fine. I
Okay,
didn't know they posted that, so sounds good.
okay. All right, is there a motion to approve? I'll make the motion. I move to approve the minutes of October 21st and November the 4th.
Second,
All right, we have to do a roll call on this one. Roll call vote, Tom Gray,
Aye.
Brian,
aye.
Dave,
I was only at one of those, so I'll say aye.
I for myself, and Tony.
Aye.
All right, so the minutes are approved. Next meeting, again, we're looking at next Thursday. Anyone have that date handy in front of them? Is it the 20th? Next Wednesday, I'm sorry.
Next Wednesday is the
Wednesday
20th.
20th?
Yes.
All right, so our next meeting is the 20th at 5:30. And we will be doing interviews at that time. And then following that, we may be looking at another meeting before December 2nd. I know it's the holidays, so it's going to be a little tight. And then we have a kickoff meeting on December 2nd. And then assuming everything goes well, and then December the 16th, and then back into January 1st and the 3rd, which I believe is the 6th, and whatever 14 days after that is. I can do some math. 20th. I know Brian's a math teacher here, so I got to make sure I don't look too stupid as I'm doing simple math. All right. Do you have any public comments tonight? Any final public comments from the public? And if it takes a minute to unmute, that's okay. Just go ahead and do it. Any final public comments from APDC rep
No.
and from the board?
I just wanted to say thank you, Michael Ray, for your presentation at the fall town meeting. Appreciate it. It was good.
Thank you. You know, in our committee notes, thank you for reminding me. I did meet with the finance committee to give them kind of an overview of just kind of resocializing this. I'm looking to meet with the school committee next week to also get into the resocialization of this. And I'll be looking to meet with the Council of Aging, the planning board, and yeah, I think that's what I've left. Council of Aging and the planning board to also give them some updates and to resocialize. And Tony, whenever you think it's advantageous for me to come, I have no doubt that you give thorough, detailed updates. But if you ever need me to come, let me know.
We have a meeting tonight, by the way, so I'll be reporting to the group on that. And all I have to do is tell them that the first 5 questions, I think 5 interview questions are all about historic preservation. They'll be delighted to hear that.
I hope your committee feels as if they're being appropriately included in this process.
They are.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 6:27 p.m.
Second. All right, it's gonna be a roll call vote. Tony,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Thank you all, and we'll
Thanks.
see you next Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.